Welcome back. As the administration scrambles to define its next moves in the war against Iran, Vice President JD Vance spent the day in Hungary. He's there to show support for Prime Minister Viktor Orban, just days ahead of Hungary's national elections, where Orban's party is trailing in most polls. Vance and Orban held a rally in a packed sports arena, which started with the vice president calling President Trump and putting him on speakerphone. Take a listen to this.
I'm a big fan of Viktor. I'm with him all the way. The United States is with him all the way. And you don't have problems with all of the problems that so many other countries have because they let their countries be invaded. And you don't have that problem because of Viktor Orban. That's the only reason you don't have that problem.
Joining me now from Budapest is NBC News senior digital reporter Alexander Smith. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you were there today. You were able to take some of this in person. So talk to us about the significance of this. The U.S. vice president openly stumping for a strongman authoritarian leader.
Well, yeah, as I've been out here in Budapest, I've been trying to find other examples of U.S. or indeed any other Western leaders flying out this late in another country's election campaign to campaign for one of the participants. And I can't really find many examples, to be honest. So this really does break good precedent. And we should be really clear about who Viktor Orban is. This is a guy who the EU, of which Hungary is a member, says can no longer be considered a full democracy. And they actually classify Orban's Hungary as an elective autocracy. That's after he has curbed the freedom of the judiciary, of the press, stuffed government positions with his allies. And now Transparency International says that Hungary is actually the most corrupt country in Europe. Now, obviously, you heard a very different message today from JD Vance. JD Vance called Orban one of the sort of the best statesmen in Europe and really criticized the EU in comparison with him. He said that Orban is standing up as a sort of lone defender of Western Christian values. Let's hear a clip.
We want you to make a decision about your future with no outside forces pressuring you or telling you what to do. I'm not telling you exactly who to vote for. But what I am telling you is that the bureaucrats in Brussels, those people should not be listened to.
And building off of that, Alex, Viktor Orban earlier today talked about some of these areas of cooperation with the U.S. What more did he say about that specifically?
Yeah, that was a really fascinating part of his speech because he was talking about Orban's energy independence. He hailed his efforts to end the war between Russia and Hungary. Now, it's important to note at this point, of course, that Orban is a key ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. So clearly he's coming to that from a certain angle. But I thought what was most interesting was Vance said, actually, it's not the economic cooperation, it's the moral cooperation between the United States and Hungary that he really wanted to emphasize. That was the cooperation on values, on Christian values. He references so many times today in his speech and his press conference, talked about family, talked about the faceless bureaucrats in Brussels and elsewhere who are trying to derail what he sort of characterized as a revolution, really, by patriots the world over, really coming together on these values.
Fascinating dynamic also, given that the vice president has been a part of some of the negotiations to see what might happen here with the war in Iran. Alex Smith, thank you so much for reporting from Budapest for us tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.